Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, August 20th, 2015. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. If it's Thursday, that can mean only one thing, the dulcet tones of 24/7 Sports Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. Steve, how are you this fine morning?
Good morning, Daniel. Excited to be on.
As always, we love to have Steve come in here and put in perspective recruiting on both the national and local scene. One of the things we want to talk about with Steve today is he has seen virtually every one of the Ohio State freshmen that we're also interested in checking out this year in person as they were being recruited. And we're going to go through a couple of names that have caught people's eyes in camp so far and maybe get an idea of whether Steve is surprised by things and some other guys we can take a look at. Obviously, the top of the list, Steve, Torrance Gibson. You got a chance to see him at, at the U.S. Army All-American game. Did you get a chance to see him run some routes there? I know he probably ran a few in practice. And are you surprised, given what you know about his recruitment and following that and covering that he moved to receiver so quickly?
Well, I was a guy that thought he could excel at numerous positions, including quarterback, and I thought he made the right decision on schools if he were to play the quarterback position. I mean, he's dynamic with the ball in his hands. I think Ohio State fans have already gotten a taste of that with what he did in the scrimmage, taking that screen pass for a big play. He's just a big-time guy with the ball in his hands, which I think with good coaching in college would have opened up the pass game for him, and I think he would have been a good college quarterback, and I don't know if the plan is to eventually move him back or what have you, but, I mean, he brings great size to the receiver position and playmaking ability at 6'4", 200-pound plus. I mean, he's dangerous in the open field like these slot receivers are, these smaller, quick guys. I mean, Torrance Gibson's a big play waiting to happen all the time. And in high school, yeah, he wasn't the most polished quarterback in the land, but he was a winner under center, played a great schedule, played teams that won state championships, and he won state championships himself. And I just thought from a straight, pure football standpoint, Torrance Gibson was a dude. Now, there were some maturity things that were discussed about Torrance away from the football field, and I've said before here and in numerous places, we're not fully functioning in the male race till we're 25, so as long as you don't do anything that's outrageously a felony or things like that, I think that you can bounce back from things. But from a pure football standpoint, Torrance Gibson was always a dude that could make an impact on a college football team, in my opinion, at a couple positions. Now, moving as quickly as he did, maybe Ohio State thought that they needed another dynamic playmaker at the receiver position with what they lost and what they now have on the roster, and Gibson sees an opportunity to be that, and he certainly can be that with his skill set.
Yeah, I think he also probably can see the writing on the wall. They're very deep at quarterback, and it's obviously stating the obvious. I'll tell you the guy who I get the sense has made a huge impression on the staff. Obviously, he was the first to get his black stripe removed. But for me, I had never seen him in person or even video of him, among regular people. But that's Isaiah Prince, the offensive lineman out of the D.C. area who originally committed to Alabama and flipped back to Ohio State. I had a chance to cover the NFL for an extended period of time. That is what NFL offensive linemen, in my opinion, look like. He is huge, and he looks just so well proportioned. Did you think he was as advertised when you saw him playing in high school?
Well, he walks in the room and looks like a power forward with his long, lean frame. Just a tremendous-looking specimen, and then you get him up to Ohio State, and a guy like Nick Marotti has a proven track record with this kind of frame because he is kind of a specimen in a sense that he's not one of those big, like, use any weight. He's got a game.
Right.
He looks very athletic in high school at the offensive tackle position, and then you get him to a place with two of the best track record guys in development on the offensive line, with first McMurati with his strength and conditioning program, and then Ed Warner, the offensive line coach, who, with what he did last year, what he's done with his career, but what he did last year was his crowning achievement of getting those young offensive linemen ready to compete at a high level throughout the season, and they got better each week and obviously won the national championship. Isaiah Prince is in the right place because he's a guy that needed to get, add muscle and even more strength. But he's a freak now when you're talking about an athletic standpoint and potential. He's got high draft pick written all over him. And it's no surprise that he's already opened eyes at Ohio State, because Ohio State brought in a great recruiting class, and hindsight's 2020, and it just seems, for him to be ranked 105 in the composite and 142 by 24/7 Sports, you're almost smacking yourself in the forehead, because it's just, we didn't analyze that one as thoroughly as we should have, because we had the data and we all talked highly about him, but for whatever reason it didn't register with where he should have been ranked, which is easily inside the top 100 and maybe inside the top 60, which puts him in the top 2 rounds, because I think that's what he could project as we talk about it today.
Oh, if you're looking at, and as you were talking there, I started to think about this, and this is going to sound like a bombastic statement, excuse me, and it's really not. If you look at the Ohio State roster right now and had to bet on someone being the number 1 overall pick in the draft, besides Bosa, who we all think that could be happening to, he might be number 2. And I realize that's putting a lot of pressure on the guy, but that's literally just looking at history and his frame and the fact that I'm not sure what type of coaching he received in high school, like you referred to, and his body is to the point where, he's got the ultimate frame. So I would not be, obviously you never want to say a guy's going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, but it's not outlandish. And so given the fact that we're supposed to be thinking about NFL projections, maybe that thankfully that was a miss that worked out in Ohio State's favor. One of the guys I think that's kind of fallen through the cracks in terms of who we've been talking about, and I think this is probably because he committed such a long time ago, is Eric Glover Williams. I saw Eric Glover Williams in camp. It might have been before his senior, I want to say it was before his junior year of high school. And he is as quick laterally as any kid you're going to see. You have high expectations for him in Columbus?
Well, absolutely. First of all, the number one thing about Eric Glover Williams is just his flat-out toughness on the football field. He's a guy that competes his ass off and plays big, because obviously he's not very big, but physicality and toughness have always been something that he's played with, and he's one of the more dynamic players in the class, up there with Torrance Gibson, with what he can do athletically in the open field on offense and defense. He's a guy that he can play against those quick, fast slots and flip his hips and be just as athletic as those guys with great feet and just plays with the tenacity. That's what I like the most about Eric Glover Williams. It's easy to gush over his athleticism, but what separates him is his toughness and ferociousness and strength and tenacity. He's a guy that just competes his ass off.
I'm a fan. Let's talk about some guys who have yet to come to Columbus and who might not ever get there. Some possible recruits, as it is your wheelhouse. We were talking about this before we got on the call. You have currently 2 guys with crystal ball flips or crystal ball predictions to end up at Ohio State, but you may not be as confident in either of those as you were when you made the call. First, Jordan Fuller, the athlete out of the Jersey area.
I still think Ohio State's high on Jordan's list. Obviously, I still have the Buckeyes crystal ball. He's going to take his official visits. Ohio State's competing with Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan, and others, and he's going to take his time. But I know that they're thoroughly impressed with Ohio State and the way they develop young men at his position and give them an opportunity to play on Sundays from a coaching standpoint and a strength and conditioning standpoint. So long way to go for Fuller, and then the other guy I have crystal ball to Ohio State right now is DeMar Hamlin, and I still think Ohio State leads with DeMar. I haven't heard differently, so that's my stance there. But there's no question he's going to take his time and take his officials. A lot of the same schools are in the mix for him. Notre Dame, Pittsburgh. Those are definitely two others that are in play. Penn State, so three others that are really still in play for DeMar, and they mentioned Virginia Tech, and they're going to take some officials. So Ohio State, they're definitely competing against other programs that are recruiting at a high level right now that those young men are very interested in also.
Fair to say neither one of those figures to resolve itself recruiting-wise anytime soon?
I don't think so. I'd be surprised if either committed before taking at least 3 official visits.
Okay, good to know. Bill had an item this morning in his morning burst about Bradenton IMG 5-star defense back Savion Smith. Remains committed to LSU, but he's a super highly regarded prospect. And his father said Ohio State, quote, is still on his list to make a visit. Maybe not about Savion Smith, because that could be said. You made a comment that about what the visits could be like down the stretch that was really impressive as we were chatting on the call. Share that with the people.
Well, Ohio State, even if they weren't coming off the national championship, but they are coming off the national championship, they have the most famous coach in college football, arguably. They get a ton of media exposure. Kids are excited about visiting Ohio State, and I think that Ohio State could have, I think there's 10 guys we're not talking about right now at least that are going to take official visits to Ohio State. Now, Ohio State's probably going to be running 3rd, 4th, or 5th for a lot of those guys, but they just want to come up and see what Ohio State's about. And obviously Ohio State leaving no stone unturned, so they're reaching out and talking to every kid and think they got a shot if they get them to campus. But a lot of these are just going to be visits, kids enjoying the process, and that's okay. If Ohio State can win one of those, it's worth it. And most teams don't use their allotment of NCAA allowed official visits, so bring a kid in that wants to have a good time, and you never know. But Ohio State, they're a marquee program, and big-time prospects are going to want to come check it out, whether or not they're 100% truly interested. I mean, I think they're maybe that's not the right verbiage, but you know what I mean? They'll have 2 or 3 schools that are closer to home that are much higher on the list that they visited 7 or 8 times. And Ohio State's getting just the one visit and official on a game weekend. So tough to make up ground on those weekends.
No doubt, but if someone's going to make up ground, it would be Herb and Company. Steve, we appreciate your time this morning, Steve. Yep, Steve will be back next Thursday. He's also a frequent contributor to the Front Row, our premium message board. We are really going out of our way to put a lot of our real inside content on there now for subscribers only. So if you don't have a premium subscription, now is the time to go get one. You get a month free when you sign up, and this is going to be one heck of a fun ride this season. Steve, thanks for joining us, brother.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you.